Ghost is gone, but what if his real empire is just getting started? What if every move Tariq makes, every war Tommy fights, and every lesson from the past is not random, but part of a bigger design that James St. Patrick started long before his death? The throne was never empty. It was waiting for the next ruler. And now the question is not who killed Ghost. The question is who is truly carrying his legacy forward. When people talk about power, they usually talk about drugs, money, and betrayal. But the real story was never just about the streets. The real story was about control. James Ghost St. Patrick did not just build a drug network. He built a system. He created layers. He separated his world into two parts, the clean public image and the hidden criminal empire. That double life was not just for survival. It was strategy. Ghost understood something that most characters in the Power universe still struggle to understand. Power is not about being the loudest or the most feared. It is about being untouchable. He didn't want to be a street king forever. He wanted legitimacy. He wanted political influence. He wanted to sit at tables where real decisions were made. And that mindset is what makes his legacy so dangerous, even after his death. Every spin-off carries a piece of his blueprint, the idea of running two lives, the idea of using education, politics, and business as weapons. Ghost believed the streets were just a starting point, not the finish line. And that belief is now shaping the next generation, whether they realize it or not. Tariq thinks he is creating his own path, but much of what he is doing follows the same structure. He uses college as cover. He builds alliances quietly. He studies his enemies before attacking. These are not random choices. These are lessons learned from watching his father. Even when Tariq hated Ghost, he was still learning from him. Tommy, on the other hand, represents the part of Ghost's blueprint that was always unstable, the emotional side, the loyal soldier who believed in the empire but never cared about politics. Yet even Tommy has evolved. In Chicago, he is not just muscle anymore. He is building connections. He is thinking long-term. That shift proves something important. Ghost changed everyone around him. The legacy of Ghost is not about money. It is about mindset. He planted seeds in every major character. Some seeds are growing into careful planners. Others are growing into dangerous rivals. But all of them are connected to the same root. The biggest truth about Ghost's blueprint is that it was never finished. He died before he could fully step into the political world. He died before he could secure his empire for the future. That unfinished dream is now floating in the air, waiting for someone bold enough to complete it. And here is where things become interesting. The Power universe keeps expanding. New cities, new enemies, new alliances. But the structure always feels familiar. Someone is always trying to move from the streets to something bigger. Someone is always trying to clean their image while keeping their power. That pattern is not a coincidence. That is Ghost's shadow still shaping the game. The throne was never destroyed the night Ghost fell. It simply became invisible. And invisible power is the most dangerous kind. Now the question becomes clear. Who understands the blueprint well enough to finish what Ghost started? And who will fail because they only copied his ambition without understanding his patience? Tariq St. Patrick is not just Ghost's son. He is the embodiment of a complicated legacy. From the very beginning, he was thrust into a world where survival demanded cunning, loyalty, and a willingness to cross lines most people would never imagine. Yet, Tariq's journey has never been straightforward. And like Ghost, who meticulously planned his moves, Tariq is still learning the balance between instinct and strategy, impulsiveness and patience. Every decision he makes, whether it's taking over drug operations, manipulating allies, or outsmarting enemies, is a reflection of lessons inherited, sometimes consciously, often unconsciously, from his father's empire. What makes Tariq so fascinating is his constant internal struggle. On one hand, he admires his father's intelligence and vision, secretly craving the respect and power that came with the name St. Patrick. On the other, he fears becoming the very man he once despised. This duality drives almost everything he does. It pushes him to take risks others would never dare, but it also blinds him to consequences, putting him on a collision course with those who understand the streets better than he does. His growth is messy, dangerous, and unpredictable, the perfect storm for someone trying to step out of a legendary shadow while still being guided by it. Tariq's relationships are equally revealing of his development. His alliances, from school friends to street partners, are not just casual connections, they are calculated moves in a larger game of chess. Every friend, every enemy, and every rival teaches him a lesson, even when he doesn't realize it. His interactions with law enforcement, for example, show his cunning side, echoing Ghost's ability to manipulate systems from within. Yet, unlike Ghost, Tariq often acts emotionally first and strategizes second, making him vulnerable in ways his father never was. This tension between instinct and intellect defines his story and keeps audiences on edge because you can never predict if Tariq will outsmart his foes or fall victim to his own impulsive decisions. One of the most compelling aspects of Tariq's evolution is how he mirrors the mistakes and triumphs of the past while attempting to carve his own path. He is learning that the street game is only one layer of power, influence, fear, and loyalty extend beyond drugs and violence. Tariq's challenge is to understand that leadership requires more than aggression. It requires vision, patience, and emotional intelligence. Ghost laid the blueprint, but Tariq must interpret it correctly. Missteps in alliances, underestimating enemies, or letting emotions dictate actions could quickly turn him from a rising star into a cautionary tale. Repeating the cycle his father once controlled so carefully, Tariq also carries the weight of prophecy and expectation. To the audience, he is both the hero and the warning. He is proof that legacy is not inherited automatically. It must be earned, understood, and wielded wisely. His rise mirrors the classic struggle between nature and nurture. Does power come from innate talent, or is it shaped by circumstance, influence, and the lessons left behind by predecessors? Tariq's story explores this in real time, showing how charisma, intelligence, and street smarts interact with moral choices and personal ambition. Every decision Tariq makes is a test, a moment that could define him as a worthy successor or a tragic figure doomed to repeat the sins of the past. Finally, Tariq's path is intertwined with the broader power universe, creating ripple effects across the empire. His rise impacts Tommy, the women of influence, law enforcement, and rival organizations. Allies may turn to enemies, enemies may form unexpected alliances, and every action has consequences that stretch far beyond the streets of New York. Tariq's evolution is not just his own story, it is a pivotal axis on which the entire legacy of power continues to spin. He represents both the hope and danger of Ghost's empire, the question of whether a legacy can truly survive beyond its founder, and the eternal conflict between ambition, morality, and survival in a world where every move is a calculated risk. Tariq is learning, but the clock is ticking. Each choice brings him closer to mastering the empire or losing it entirely. And in this delicate balance between power and recklessness, the next chapter of the power universe is being written, sometimes with foresight, sometimes with fatal mistakes, but always with high stakes that echo the life and death of James St. Patrick himself. Tommy Egan is the definition of unpredictability. From the beginning, he was never about plans or strategy in the way Ghost was. He lived for loyalty, adrenaline, and instinct. Violence was his language, and survival was his constant companion. Yet underneath that rough exterior lies a mind, capable of calculation, understanding, and even manipulation, qualities that only become apparent when the stakes are highest. Tommy has always been the fire to Ghost's ice, the element of chaos within a controlled empire, and now, in the post-Ghost world, Tommy's role has shifted in ways that are subtle but critical. He is no longer just the enforcer or the loyal. sidekick, he has become a player in his own right, building influence in Chicago while navigating an empire still shaped by his former partner's legacy. One of the most fascinating things about Tommy is how he embodies both freedom and responsibility. Without Ghost, he is free to act without restraint, yet that freedom comes with the weight of decisions that have far-reaching consequences. Every alliance he forms, every turf he takes, and every enemy he confronts reflects his instinctual understanding of the game, and like Tariq, Tommy rarely questions his motives. He acts first and justifies later, but this impulsiveness does not mean he is blind to strategy. Over time, the streets have taught him lessons that even Ghost could not fully control. Tommy's instincts have become sharper, his moves more deliberate, and his understanding of power dynamics more nuanced. He is a survivor in a world that constantly shifts beneath him, and that makes him a wild card every other character has to consider. Tommy's evolution is also tied to relationships. His loyalty to Ghost was unwavering, but his loyalty now extends to those who respect him and share his vision. This selective trust makes him unpredictable as allies. What makes Tommy especially compelling in the larger narrative is his potential to disrupt the current balance of power. Tariq may have inherited Ghost's vision and partially mastered his methods, but Tommy has the ability to challenge, redirect, or even destroy it. His unpredictability ensures that no one can move confidently without considering the possibility that Tommy will intervene in unexpected ways. Alliances formed today could crumble tomorrow, and territories assumed secure could suddenly be contested, all because Tommy thrives in chaos and sees opportunity where others see risk. He operates with a blend of instinctual fearlessness and hard-earned street wisdom that gives him a unique perspective on both survival and power consolidation. Furthermore, Tommy's psychological complexity adds layers to his potential impact on future storylines. He is driven not just by survival, but by a sense of identity, loyalty, and revenge. And like Tariq, who is still figuring out his moral compass, Tommy's morality is rigid. Respect must be earned, betrayal punished, and loyalty preserved at all costs. This rigid personal code makes him a formidable opponent in both expected and hidden battles, even as he expands into new territories and navigates complex relationships. Tommy's ultimate moves are difficult to predict because they are filtered through both raw instinct and deep emotional loyalty. A combination that often tips the scales in unexpected ways. In short, Tommy Egan is more than a wild card. He's a force that constantly tests the limits of strategy, loyalty, and survival. He operates at the intersection of chaos and calculation, making him a critical player in the Power Universe's ongoing story of empires, rivalries, and legacy. While Tariq studies Ghost's blueprint and other characters maneuver cautiously, Tommy moves like a storm, capable of reshaping the rules of the game with a single decision. And this makes him not only fascinating to watch but essential to understanding how the empire and the legacy of Ghost continues to evolve. The question that hangs over the narrative is simple yet terrifying. When Tommy decides to act, who will survive, who will fall, and who will finally understand what it truly means to control power? The Power Universe isn't just moving forward, it's constantly looking back. The prequel series, Raising Kanan, is more than a nostalgic look at the early days of the St. Patrick Empire. It's a roadmap that explains why the present unfolds the way it does. Kanan Stark's journey from a young, reckless boy into a calculating, ruthless figure lays the groundwork for many of the themes and conflicts we see in the main timeline. His experiences reveal that the streets, family dynamics, and early betrayals are not just background, they are blueprints for the cycles of ambition, loyalty, and vengeance that define the entire Power legacy. Understanding Kanan's past is essential to understanding how the next generation, particularly Tariq, navigates the same challenges. Kanan's upbringing is a masterclass in manipulation and survival. Surrounded by crime, privilege, and conflicting parental guidance, he is forced to adapt constantly. He learns to read people, anticipate threats, and leverage influence from a young age. His father, Louis, imparts lessons about control, power, and status, while his mother, Raquel, represents survival through cunning and emotional intelligence. These dual influences create a psychological complexity that mirrors Tariq's struggle. Decades later, Kanan is both the product of his environment and a shaper of it, showing viewers how early experiences shape a person's moral compass, decision-making, and strategic thinking. The lessons Kanan learns are subtle but profound, and they echo in the actions of every major player in the Power universe. The parallels between Kanan and Tariq are striking. Both are navigating worlds where identity and perception are everything. Both must balance family loyalty with ambition. Both operate under constant pressure from rivals, law enforcement, and the expectations of those around them. The difference is timing and experience. Kanan grows up in a world where mistakes have immediate consequences, while Tariq inherits knowledge but often misapplies it, learning lessons the hard way. Yet the cycle is clear. History in this universe has a way of repeating itself. The choices of one generation influence the next, and unresolved conflicts from the past echo across time, creating patterns of betrayal, revenge, and calculated ambition that shape every storyline. Raising Kanan also reveals how relationships and alliances are forged in ways that seem minor at the moment but later have massive implications. Friends become enemies, mentors betray protégés, and every interaction carries weight. The prequel highlights the long-term consequences of decisions made in youth and shows how those decisions ripple through generations. Kanan's choices, his alliances, and his mistakes eventually set the stage for conflicts in the main series, influencing the paths of characters like Tariq, Tommy, and even the women of influence who control much of the emotional and strategic landscape. In other words, what seems like a personal story in the past has direct ramifications on the Empire's present and future. The idea of legacy becomes even more pronounced when considering the psychological impact of Kanan's story on characters who never directly knew him. His presence is felt in the lessons passed down, the cautionary tales whispered, and the strategies replicated or avoided by the next generation. Characters like Tariq may be unaware of all the connections, yet they are influenced by patterns established decades before. This is why Raising Kanan is more than history, it is prophecy. It demonstrates that survival, power, and ambition are not just learned but inherited in a more abstract sense through observation, consequence, and environment. Finally, the expanding universe allows for the possibility of new stories, new wars, and new alliances. The past breathes life into the present, ensuring that no action is isolated and no character operates in a vacuum. The secrets, mistakes, and triumphs of Kanan's era still resonate, creating opportunities for unexpected alliances, betrayals, and strategic moves. This intergenerational storytelling ensures that every character's decision is informed not only by what is happening now, but by what came before, making the Power universe a living, breathing world where legacy is both a weapon and a curse. By understanding Kanan, the audience can see patterns repeating, recognize foreshadowing in Tariq's rise, and anticipate potential clashes that might otherwise seem sudden or illogical. The past is never really gone. In Power it lingers, shaping motives, strategies, and destinies. Every alliance, every war, every secret in the present is built upon the foundation laid by those who came before, making the universe feel like a seamless, interconnected web where history, strategy, and survival intersect in ways that are as thrilling as they are inevitable. Beneath the streets, the clubs, and the boardrooms of the Power universe, there is a thread that ties everything together, a hidden network of connections that few characters recognize but that shapes nearly every move in the Empire. The shows and spin-offs might seem like separate stories at first glance, each with its own city, characters, and conflicts. Yet if you look closely, patterns emerge: alliances, rivalries, and power moves that appear unrelated at first, but are part of a much larger strategy. This is the secret connection, the invisible web, that links the St. Patrick legacy across generations and geography. It's subtle, it's dangerous, and it could determine who survives the next wave of wars. At the heart of this connection is the idea that power in this universe is never isolated. What happens in New York doesn't stay in New York and moves. In Chicago, echo back to characters in other cities. Networks overlap, old enemies resurface in unexpected ways, and alliances are more fluid than they appear. Even characters who seem to act independently are, in many ways, responding to the ripple effects of decisions made long ago. This hidden network isn't about coincidence. It's about cause and effect, long-term strategy, and the influence of Ghost's original blueprint. Every action, every betrayal, every rise or fall contributes to a story that spans decades and cities, creating a universe that is interconnected in ways most viewers don't fully see until patterns start to repeat. One key element of this secret connection is the recurring theme of family and loyalty. Ghost's empire, while outwardly a business, was built on relational bonds that extend far beyond simple transactions. These bonds are mirrored in the choices of Tariq, Tommy, and even characters in the prequel timeline. Rivalries from the past often set up opportunities in the present. Secrets kept by one generation influence the next, and enemies of yesterday can become allies or threats depending on circumstances decades later. This cyclical influence creates a web of cause and consequence, where a small choice in one story can ripple into a major conflict in another. It is this invisible network that makes the Power universe feel like a living ecosystem rather than a series of isolated dramas. Political influence and business dealings are another layer of the connection. Ghost always recognized that control extended beyond street corners and clubs. He understood law, finance, and politics as tools for long-term influence. Today, characters like Tariq are learning similar lessons. Their choices, alliances with politicians, manipulation of law enforcement, and calculated expansion of networks mirror the strategies Ghost once used. Even seemingly minor plot lines, such as school or neighborhood conflicts, often tie back to